What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Wrestle Wellbeing. I'm your host, Jim, and we've got another episode of the Unseen Battles. And today I've got a very special guest. But before I introduce my very special guest, I'm going to talk to people about the Hot Tag Foundation. Now, for people that don't know what the Hot Tag Foundation is, it is a non-profit organisation based here in the UK that aims to share wrestling with children across Britain, particularly those in need. I'm going to play a quick video now that I got from the guys. If you don't know who they are, make sure that you find them on Instagram and Facebook. Give them a like, give them a follow. Make sure they send my regards. So yeah, here's the video from the Hot Tag Foundation. So there you go, guys. That is the Hot Tag Foundation. Now, on to today's episode of the Unseen Battles. I'm joined today by a very special guest. Everybody, please welcome Ste Grimshaw, the referee. Ste, how's things?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for asking, mate. Also want to send a massive thank you out to Steve for joining me today. Been trying to get Steve on for a while, but we've been had a couple of scheduling conflicts. Obviously, we're both working and what have you, so it's nice to finally get Steve on the channel. I've seen a lot of Steve's work, and I'm really impressed with the work that you do, mate. It's quite a fascinating thing, not just seeing the wrestler's point of view, but also seeing the referee's point of view. So this is going to be quite an interesting episode, actually getting a referee's point of view of the wrestling industry.
Certainly hope so. Referees are known for trying to not pull attention. So me talking about myself can be a bit jarring at times, but also I'm loud and never shut up. So there's a bit of a give and take there.
Fantastic, mate. So if it's all right with you, mate, I'll play the quick clip and we'll jump straight in, mate. Let's get into it, guys. So, guys, just before we start this interview, I just want to put a quick disclaimer out there, which is in the description below. The things said in today's video may be a bit personal to some people watching. If you are feeling a particular way in your mental health, please seek help. There are a lot of organisations out there that can help with mental health, particularly Mind Charity and Samaritans, amongst others. All their links are in the description below. Also, after this video, make sure you follow Steve on Instagram as well and other platforms. What other platforms do you have, Steve?
Everything. Ref Ste Grimshaw on X, Threads, Facebook, whatever the new one's called that's blue, I can't remember. I'm on everything.
Fantastic. So before we start with my questions, I've got a couple of questions that I asked from people on Instagram. Lauren Sims has got 3 questions for you. So the first question from Lauren is, what makes a wrestler fun and easy to work with in your opinion?
Someone that follows the rules. No, I'm joking. I'm quite anxious, so I like to sort of know what's going on ahead of time. I think when we are going through things, the wrestler will often say, "Oh, you don't need to know much," yada yada yada. It's like, no, I do need to know much, because I can then tailor the experience to sort of elevate them, and that's why I sort of would like to know things. So yeah, my ideal wrestler is someone that says, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this to start. this many near falls. This is the finish. This is what we need from you. Right, got it. Fantastic. Also, if there's something that doesn't make sense from a rules perspective, or something I feel like it isn't necessarily right for the audience there, or that's a bit, well, why would you do that as a referee? I can then sort of give my input if it's a safe space to do so. Not everyone will appreciate that, but yeah, I like people that do sort of listen to your ref as well.
Great stuff, great stuff. So I hope that answered your question, Lauren. Next question from Lauren is, what surprised you the most being behind the curtain after being a fan for so long?
Wow, that is a good one. What surprised me the most? I've been a massive nerd about wrestling for years and years and years, listening to all the podcasts I can. So I was quite au fait with what went on behind the scenes. Oh, that is a good one. I'm going to say how small some of the dressing rooms are, which can be
Fair
a
enough.
bit of a nightmare, especially for someone as chunky as me.
I can only imagine. So, Lauren also asks, this is a final question from Lauren. I feel as though she's conducting this interview more than me. I feel as though I'm manifesting Lauren.
Well, me and Lauren are tight, and I've only really done one podcast before, and it was with Lauren. So maybe it's just stuff she forgot to ask me.
I'm hoping that these questions help you, Lauren. So, as a very organised person, how do you deal with a spontaneous wrestler?
I mean, it sort of goes with what I was saying earlier. I would prefer someone to be quite organized. Some people don't like working like that, which is absolutely fine. You've got to adjust to that sort of performer. Ultimately, and this will be a running thread through this, they are the focus, that they are the most important thing in the show. So I've got to adapt to whatever they want to do. At the end of the day, and again, we'll probably touch on this a little bit. Part of the monologue that goes on inside a referee's head when you're in these matches is, what would I do if this was real? How would a real referee react to this? And that sort of feeds what I would do in situations where people are calling things on the fly. A big issue that faces a lot of referees, trained referees, is if someone doesn't tell them the finish, and the finish happens slightly different to what we were expecting, you've got to roll with it. The absolute cardinal sin of a referee is to not count the three when the shoulders are clearly down. So, you've got to be prepared for that. And a lot of the times you do have to just treat it like you are a normal referee, especially on shows where there's just absolutely no prep time, like a Comic-Con show, where you don't have that time backstage to sort of go through things. You are just reacting and improvising. If the crowd turns in a certain way, you'll have to improvise that as well. So you've got to almost treat it as a shoot referee in some circumstances, and you've got to always be prepared for stuff that is unforeseen to you. I think I'm getting okay on that now. I'm still quite new in the business, which we'll get to, but yeah. Ultimately, I would say there's probably a 50-50 split of wrestlers that like to be organized, and wrestlers that do sort of call it on the fly a little bit. So you've just got to be okay with both those mindsets.
Okay, fantastic. So that's the end of Lauren's questions. And funnily enough, Lauren's actually watching. So next we've got a fellow zebra. We've got Stu Davis, who's asked, what has been the biggest positive mental health wise from getting into the wrestling business?
I don't have a huge family, and as I'm sure Stu would sort of attest to, when you do find a group of like-minded people, there's always been a bit of stigma around wrestling. So when you can openly talk about your love of that performance art, it's great. And I made fast friends that first referee session that we did. Fast friends with a lot of people, including Lauren, actually, that did start off on the very very first referee session that we did. We were each other's support system. I've got numerous group chats which variations of referee support, and different words added to that, referee team 3000 or whatever. But we're all just a nice little social network for each other, support network for each other. I hope I can speak for Stu when he knows, when I say he knows that he can come to me if he's got any problems. I certainly know I can go to Stu and everybody else that was in that first sort of group. Going back to what we said initially about having things go wrong in a match, I can dwell on those things, and I know that about myself. So sometimes I'll have a little debrief with people like Lauren, Stu, other people like that. Most prominent of those people, referee James Greenwood, who is the person that sort of brought us all into the fray. But yeah, I think the most positive aspect of this is just having that found family, that support network that you can lean on. And again, I think I speak for Stu when I say everyone's always sort of edging each other on, and we all want the best for each other. There's no sort of underhandedness in our group. We all just want each other to succeed.
It's brilliant to hear that, mate. It really is. It's quite obviously that you're really close with obviously the other referees, so that's it's a really nice thing to hear. Got a quick message from Gavin who says, "Hey," so hey Gavin, hope you're enjoying the show so far, mate. Got the last of the Instagram questions, which is from Wrestling Jeebus, who says, who asks, should I say, who is the most entertaining person to travel on the road with?
Okay, so I drive a lot, so I have a lot of people in the car. There's a few regulars in the car, like Rob Drake, Lana Austin, Joey Hayes. You've got the Bolton Town wrestling guys whenever we go on tour. There's a few people that are regularly in the car. As far as the most entertaining person goes, it's I'm gonna give it to something else, but I want to just call out Joey Hayes for a minute because I love his wrestling stories. And I love that if we're playing wrestling music in the background, he'll tell us exactly what the music video was for this when it was on in the Attitude Era. Oh, this is where Goldust comes out, and this is where Val Venus is in the scene. I love that aspect. With that being said, though, the best road trip I ever had was with Jenna and Katie and their dog, Poochador Earl Grey. The unbridled joy when that dog saw me, and we all went in the car down to Morecambe together. Just fantastic. It's one of the only road trips where I've not been thinking about wrestling before I've got to the actual building. I'm just purely, well, what's he doing now? He's on my shoulder looking out the window and he's getting dead excited. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with Earl Grey, the Poochador.
Brilliant, fantastic. That's probably one of the best answers I've ever heard. That, if I'm honest, that's fantastic. So
that dog is amazing. I've just got to tell you, I should have worn it, but I've got a Poochador T-shirt. I don't believe in owning wrestlers merchandise of people I'm going to work with, or even people I kind of want to work with, because if any fan sees me on the street wearing one of those T-shirts, or at a show wearing one of those T-shirts, he's favoritism there. Well, I sort of sidestepped my rule to buy a Poochador T-shirt for Jenna.
You've got to have a Poochador T-shirt. You can't not have a Poochador T-shirt.
Incredible.
Everyone should have one. Fantastic. So that's the end of the Instagram questions. No, said end the interview. Then we're all 15 minutes in. So
Thanks, see you.
see you guys. So yeah, we're going to start off with my questions now, which are split into two parts. First part is your journey into professional wrestling and becoming a referee, and then the second part is where it can get a bit heavy. Is where we're going to start talking about your mental health and your struggles and your triumphs, really, because that's what mental health is quite a large part about. So to kick us off, you've alluded to it a bit earlier. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and what initially drew you to the world of professional wrestling? Is it something that you got into when you were quite a young child, or is it something that you got into a bit further on in the years?
So I'm 43 years old, almost 44, and I've been watching pro wrestling since about 1988, 1989, just prior to the sort of big push of Sky TV bringing all the wrestling over to the UK. Prior to that, it was mainly World of Sport, but then the American wrestling came over just slightly prior to that. And my dad, it was the person that initially got me into this. He used to tell me stories that he used to dress up as the Green Avenger and did a couple of what we would consider to be enhancement matches in the Blackpool Winter Gardens. Yeah, he told me about that, and that sort of set my imagination going. So I was into it a little bit, and then when Sky TV did come over here, sort of 1990 to 91-ish, that's when everything sort of exploded for me. I went to see SummerSlam 92. I was in Wembley Stadium for that. And that was sort of my peak fandom. Again, my dad knew that I was very, very into this, and he'd get me videotapes from his work. I don't know how he got them, but there were lots of NWA and New Japan and Big Japan and All Japan, all sort of meshed together like a sort of a mixtape you'd make for a girlfriend, just sort of patches of stuff. None of it sort of synced up. But that was the first time I'd seen Tommy Billington versus Tiger Mask. I saw a lot of the Bret Hart stuff when he was pre-teaming with the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs, and obviously Davey Boy Smith comes from my neck of the woods, so there's a big connection there. So I've been in love with it from a very, very early age, really. Trying to get as much content as possible, and the fact that I was seeing so many segmented matches on these mixtapes essentially means that I sort of don't really need the storytelling element sometimes. What I mean is the in-between bits leading up to the matches. I'm more focusing on what happens in the actual match itself. Which I think is quite rare on the mass. I think you've got to have seen a lot of wrestling, I think, to sort of see it from that perspective in a lot of the cases. So yeah, massive fan. I watched a lot of all sorts of wrestling prior to the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era is when I sort of dipped off a little bit. And it wasn't because the product went downhill or anything like that, because a lot of people would argue that it elevated in the Attitude Era. But at that point, sort of 96, 97, I was 15, 16, going out, meeting people. I was very into kayaking and basketball at the time. So I sort of dipped off a little bit around then. I didn't watch any indie stuff for a very long time because I dipped off. And the only sort of wrestling available to us was you'd see people like the UK Undertaker and Pete Dunne's mentioned it before. You saw the Dudley Boy, and there were all these rip-offs of established characters rather than being what I liked, which was proper old school NWA style grappling with real characters that weren't a rip off something else. So I got back into it sort of when I'd calmed down a bit, and sort of 2005-ish again, right around the time where TNA was starting to elevate. So I watched a lot of TNA around that point. Didn't really connect with WWE again until much later, probably NXT. Didn't watch any indie stuff for a very long time, and still until I started watching Grand Pro Wrestling, which is a company, absolute gem of a company, one of my favorite places to work now, near Wigan, a couple of miles from my house, so dead easy. So I started to really appreciate indie wrestling again, going through a mix of GPW and again watching NXT around that time, which was starting to really elevate. Randomly, I was watching the NXT UK tourney, the first one in Blackpool Winter Gardens. I was watching it on TV, and in the audience, I saw one of my friends from a previous job, Lucy Openshaw. So I sort of got in contact with her and said, "You're just sitting on TV." And then it was sort of that, I can't believe you like wrestling. You just don't seem like the kind of person that would enjoy that. Fast forward a sort of few years, talking to her a lot, she got into ring announcing. She put open an advert for the first ever referee training facility going on at Future Shock in Manchester, ran by James Greenwood. We're going to go into it a little bit later, but I've massive issues with my size and my sort of fitness ability. So I slid into James's DMs and panicking, saying, "Look, I'd like to give this a go. I don't know if I've got the ability to do that. I don't know if I was looking for reassurance or perhaps a reason not to do it, because we do talk ourselves out of these things." But he said, "Yeah, come down, see what you can do." And candidly, I was actually a lot fitter than some of the people that were trying to do it, which shocked me. And yeah, 6 months later, I made my debut and sort of never slowed down, really. So that was a long answer.
It's a fantastic origin story. Absolutely brilliant, that one, mate. Absolutely brilliant. So, you kind of alluded to it in the first question, but was being a referee always your goal, or did you try and explore becoming a wrestler? Or is it something that you
No.
put on the black and whites and then you kind of like found your calling?
So some of my other passions outside of wrestling are film and just generally sort of storytelling. So I always like the story element. And I know I sort of said earlier, I don't need the in-between bits, just a match. But I mean, I like the story of a match as well. But just generally speaking, I like storytelling in any sort of facet. But I've never been someone that particularly wants to be the star. But I do like to help people. So I suppose there's potentially an element that I never thought I would be able to wrestle. But I've learned little bits here and there, and it's really solidified the fact that I don't want to be a wrestler, the center of attention. I'd much rather be in a position to support. And this is going to sound awful as well, but watching some of the indie stuff on the UK, it did become very clear to me that the referees in general, or in the majority, weren't very good. They didn't really know what they were doing, and I picked up on stuff from watching wrestling for so long that I was sort of questioning, well, why are they doing that? Why are they jumping when there's a big move? That's sort of destroying kayfabe. So there's a lot of referees that I didn't think were up to par, that have never received training, which I later found out. So it's not their fault, but they'd never received any sort of guidance on it. So yeah, I think a supporting role is very much what I'm comfortable with. Even my sort of shoot job, I work in compliance, and that's very much a support role as well for the people who do sort of the real work. It's just my area where I'm comfortable, and if I can add little elements to sort of make something better, if I can, because as Lauren sort of suggested, I'm almost to a problem. I'm very very organized, so if I can help in some way, then I feel like I've given back to something that's given me so much over the years.
Fantastic. That's a great answer, mate. Thank you for that. So, what was the training process like to become a professional wrestling referee? Were there any unexpected challenges? And to add on to that, we've got a comment from Liam of Magic Wrestling, a very close friend of mine, who's I'm also in partnership. Says, "What's the best thing that Greenwood taught you?"
Whiteboard. Sorry. What was the first part of that question again?
Sorry, that probably caught me off guard. That. So, what was the training process like to become a
Right.
professional wrestling referee?
Yeah. Okay. There's unfortunately the mentality for a lot of people, because they don't understand what a referee does in there, is, oh, if someone is unable to do the wrestling, chuck a referee shot on them, that they'll manage, that'll be their role. I think the most important element of the training that we had was that is not how it should be. Again, it's very much a support role. So we've got to learn things like movements in the ring without giving away sort of too much of how things are done in wrestling. There is a set of movements that a wrestler does that isn't the same set of movements that a referee does. We occupy different elements of the ring, but we still have to know enough about what's going to happen with the moves that we can stay out of the way. You've got to highlight certain things in the actual match. You've got to play to the audience and do gestures which subconsciously sort of elevate that match. Um, and there is an element of fitness there as well. Don't think that it isn't something that's incredibly taxing, as I sort of mentioned earlier. We wear knee pads because we're constantly going down on our knees. It's like doing very 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 bad burpees for 15 minutes every time we go down for a pinfall. But you've got to understand the ebbs and the flows of a match. You've got to understand the rules, and that might not seem like something that's too hard, but there are a lot of rules in wrestling. And one of the regular questions that I get at shows, even for people that have been doing this 15, 20 years, is, oh, just remind me, can we do this? Can we do that? What forgot to do in this scenario? So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that we've got to be aware of. And then once we know that, we've got to put it into practice in training scenarios, so we don't go out there and probably my one swear of the day, shit the bed on the actual show, and ruin an experience for someone that might be watching wrestling for the first time. I sort of adapted my mindset when it comes to referee training to think of it in sort of three sorts of words. That is support. What can we do to support and emphasize what's going on in the match? Emphasize the people's characters, support the story that they're going on at the moment. Safety. What happens if something goes wrong in this scenario? Did someone take a particularly bad tumble? Which is why I recommend that everyone that's in refereeing gets some sort of safety standard, like St. John's Ambulance, basic first aid. I know little bits of concussion training, although I'm not formally trained on it, but it's all stuff that you need to be aware of if something does go wrong, because the first thing that happens when someone does a botch in the ring, and you go over to them and say, "You okay, pal?" Every single one of them will say, "Oh yeah, fine." And that person could stand up seconds later and there could be blood gushing from their head. "I'm fine, mate. Yeah, no worries." So you've got to have the wherewithal of, okay, no, you cannot continue this. And the more you go on, the more fine-tuned you get to it. Because I'll be looking at how fast people are breathing. Are people blown up? Is there a spot coming where they could potentially botch that spot because they've just rushed through the first third of the match? So those are the two things. And the third thing is credibility. Ultimately, you've got to still look like a referee. You've got to react the way a referee would. Otherwise, people are going to watch this and it'll completely take them out of the experience. The dress code falls into that. That was one of the things that was hammered home to us very, very earlier on. Is if you walk into an indie show and the guy's wearing or girl is wearing white wrestling boots, grey jeans, they've not tucked the shirt in, they've got stubble. That looks there's no credibility there. It doesn't look like that's someone that would be an official. You need to look the part so people can suspend disbelief and buy into what they're doing. Wrestling fans are dying to suspend that disbelief, so you've got to play into that. So those are the main things that were sort of instilled with me in the training. The whiteboard, we talked about how organized I am. I've got a big whiteboard that details various things that are happening on the show that I will look at and sort of take in during the show, and it's just so good. I love my whiteboard. You'll see me leaving shows struggling to carry it with one arm because it is massive. People like Lauren, if they're at the shows with me, she'll wander over. Do you want me to take your whiteboard? Yes, please. So yeah, so all what I just said and a whiteboard.
You've opened a big can of worms with the whiteboard comments because we've got Liam saying, "Don't tell Richie said that." We've got Lauren saying, "Not the whiteboard," and now we've got Gavin saying, "Steve also has magnetic words for said whiteboard."
Oh yeah, we barely scratched the surface of the whiteboard. Yeah, there's some things I won't talk about, but yeah, let's say I put a lot of effort into that whiteboard.
I think we may need to get the whiteboard on as like a special guest. You know, like
We
Dee
don't.
Dee's manager for Alpha. I think that the whiteboard might be your manager, Steve, if you
Well,
decide to get in the ring.
if I become more attached to that whiteboard, it's going to be very unhealthy for me. I'm already so attached to it.
I love that. That's brilliant, mate. So, can you describe your first experience refereeing a match for us, mate? What emotions were you feeling, and how did you overcome any adversity during the match?
Well, I'm lucky in a way because as I sort of mentioned to you when we were prepping this, I'm full of anxiety before the thing. I'm full of anxiety after the thing, but during the thing, I'm okay. Um, and that's sort of with everything really. I'll just push through and do it. And my first match, I was incredibly lucky. It was through Odyssey Pro Wrestling in Morecambe. The fans there, absolutely second to none. The loudest fans that I've ever heard. Just absolutely fantastic fans. The setup was great. Everything was incredibly professional. And the two people that I worked with were HD Drake and Rob Drake. So it was the Great British Drake Off Part 2. And you could not have asked for a better match. Everything went absolutely swimmingly. At this point, I'd had 6 months worth of training, so I sort of knew the patterns of movement and I knew the rules. And I had James Greenwood in my earpiece if something were to go wrong. But you could not have asked for a better experience. Got through it. Got through another match at the end as well, where I was an outside official. So that was my first experience. And another great thing about being a referee in there is maybe you're subconsciously sort of playing to the audience, but you're not looking at the audience. You're looking at the two guys. So it becomes a very, very concealed area where your focus is. So I'm able to sort of disassociate in a positive way, and just focus on what I'm doing. Maybe hear the swell of the crowd, and try and work with that. But yeah, I'm very lucky that I can just focus on what I'm doing. And once I'm done, I'm out of there, panic about it the next day, which I do.
Fantastic. Fantastic, mate. So, I think you kind of alluded to this question a bit ago, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions that fans in particular have about a wrestling referee and what they actually do?
A lot of people think they can just jump in and do what we do. From the fan point of view, I've done a couple of Comic Cons and things like that, where you get the 10-year-old kid, give me a shirt, I'll get in there. My impressions are terrible, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception. But from the fans to the wrestlers, a lot of people don't understand how much thought we do put into to the referee dynamic. And I'm sure a lot of people will think, "Oh, give over, you're just a referee." We're not the stars. We're not trying to be the stars. If you're a good referee, you're certainly not trying to be a star. Everything you do is to support the actual match and the two guys. Um, but there are still things that we do to help the match. Um, and I'm not going to get into that sort of too much, but everything is an escalation. The referee that you see at the start of the match is not the referee you see at the end of the match, in the same way that you've got two wrestlers that are doing the whole, and everything starts off very, very rhythmically, and then by the end they're all exhausted and they're hitting high spots and they're hitting finishes. There is a natural escalation for the referee as well that many people might not notice. It's I've said this before. The worst thing you can do is have a referee in there that's literally just dawdling around, not listening to the crowd. If someone hits a Spanish fly off the top onto chairs, and then this doddering referee goes over, one, two. You just ruin the moment, if that makes sense. Excuse me.
Yeah, definitely, mate. So, there is quite a few occasions where, obviously, not in sort of like the big leagues like WWE and TNA and AEW sort of thing, but you do see that on like quite a few indie promotions where the referee doesn't necessarily seem to be enjoying the match. It's more that he's not doing what he can to further the story in the match. Like you say, a big spot like a Spanish fly that is potentially dangerous. You need the referee to be like, sort of like over the top, exaggerated, like, "Oh my god, they've just nearly killed themselves." Maybe if he's just like, "Yeah, look at that," and then just walks over, counts the pin, it kind of makes it like kind of ruins the mystique of the
It does.
thing. Would you
It
say?
no sell it. And there is a flip side to that as well, because you'll get some referees that they'll see a power slam, just a regular power slam, and they'll go, "Oh God, no!" And it's like, well, no, that's the opposite. As a referee, you've seen these things hundreds of times. Again, going back to the credibility aspect of it, what would I do if I was a real official? How would I react? Do that.
Definitely, mate. Definitely agree with you on that one, buddy. That's it's a very good, great answer that one, mate. So, so looking back on your career so far, what's been your favourite match to officiate and why?
I always think of two immediately, and that's probably a massive disservice to the amount of people that I have sort of worked with. But the two that always spring to mind, the first one is a match that happened at GPW last year. Again, it's my home promotion. I'm very lucky to work there now, be one of their regular referees. And it was a championship match between, excuse me, I do apologise. Championship match between Sandy Beaches and Sam Gradwell. And it was a high octane. As soon as the bell rang, they were at each other. I'm going in between them beforehand. It went all over the building. Very very raw, aggressive match with some silliness. There was a spot where Sammy Gradwell ripped up an inflatable shaft. So there are peaks and valleys with these things, but also there was blood in the match. It was a very visceral match. You really felt the emotion on the guys and the crowd, and much like Odyssey, the crowd at GPW are very very intense. And there was points in that match where you just felt the crowd lift. And the second one is probably LWF. It was Moonbear versus Joey Hayes. And it was just the epitome of a good match. It was two guys working the crowd. There was nothing flashy. There was nothing visceral. It was just unbridled fun. Everything about that match just clicked. I couldn't tell you a move that they did in that match, other than perhaps a Uranagi and Joey Hayes's stop and then kick. But it was so entertaining, and sometimes less is more. And I think for me now, a lot of the times I'll listen to the crowd, and that sort of gauges my enjoyment of it. Because I feel like I've done a good job if the crowd have lifted. And I've been involved in so many decent matches now, that I never thought I'd do. So yeah, I'm sure I'm missing. I'm missing quite a few. Another good one was Luke Jacobs and Sam Bailey at Infinite. In the opening moments of the match, Sam Bailey threw a jacket at me and scratched all down my eye and arm, and I didn't feel it. I saw the sort of bit of blood, but I didn't feel it. I just carried on with the match. Great match. There's a spot with one of these punch bags on the outside that they go past. So give me a pound, ref. Put a pound in, someone smacks it, then someone's head goes into it. That's that sort of stuff that's just fun. But then afterwards, everyone came up to me and said, "Steve, you all right? So, did he hit you really hard?" And the adrenaline in your soul, something, Cody Rhodes. So yeah, I think those are my top three. I think. I mean, I'm probably missing loads, but those are the three that come to mind.
Brilliant, mate. Well, obviously, because you've had some name, obviously means that you're doing your job well. The promotions obviously really like you. The wrestlers get on with you and everything. Would you say that? Yeah, one would definitely hope, mate. So, in terms of your relationship with the wrestlers, is there a sense of camaraderie with that, or do you try and keep that relationship strictly professional?
I wouldn't say strictly professional. Again, going back to the fact a referee isn't one of the boys, one of the wrestlers. He or she is separate. We're more management than wrestler, on that level. We're support staff. Us, commentary, ring announcers, we're all there to emphasize the two wrestlers, or more wrestlers, obviously. So I personally don't consider myself being in with people. I'm very very friendly with people, and I think there's some friendships that have come out of that. But I very much don't consider myself to be one of the guys backstage. I'm very much someone that's just there to sort of support and help. I'm sure people will disagree with that. I think there's a degree of separation there.
So, brilliant. So, in terms of preparing for a match, how do you prepare for a match, both physically and mentally, knowing obviously the unpredictable nature of professional wrestling? As we know, the injuries can happen at any time. So spots will have to be called on the fly, an audible might have to be called, or whatever. How do you prepare for a match mentally and physically?
So, unfortunately, even though I'm a big guy, I do keep myself much fitter than people might expect. I go for a lot of walks. Every morning, usually I'll do a few miles, and then I'll go to the gym. There was a period of time last year where I sort of fell out of that because of some troubles I was having, which I'm sure we'll circle back to. Which meant I put on a little bit more weight, and I started not slowing down in the ring, but slowing down out of the ring, and my physical health did take a bit of a knocking there, because you are very physical when you're in the ring. Even just speaking to people in a loud voice, and sort of narrating what's going on to the audience, which you often do as a referee, that can be quite draining to you. You're sort of always on, and you feel very fatigued afterwards. What I try and do is, on the physical side of things, I will always try and hit the gym 3 or 4 times a week, walk every day, or there or thereabouts. But mentally, I will always try and get there with plenty of time to spare. I'm usually one of the first people, as a referee, I feel like should be in the building. Try and help with ring crewing, although that's sort of fallen off a little bit with me recently because I have been feeling some pressures physically. I've sort of shied away from helping with the ring, which I always feel quite bad about. But I'll be there early. I will set up the whiteboard, and I will wait to try and pick up on what's going on through the show, almost by osmosis, just sort of chatting with people, be available for them to come to me, so I don't have to necessarily trying to go and find them, trying to find out information, which doesn't always work, but I try and make myself available. And also, by being there early and getting ready early, it means I'm not stressing out being last minute, putting my gear on, or trying to find people. Usually, I've got myself a bit zen just before match time. If there's other referees on there that are less experienced than me, I'll try and help them. So yeah, I mean, usually I just try and spend as much time at the actual show as humanly possible, so I can sort of acclimate to everything and just sort of get ready. But as I sort of mentioned earlier, show days aren't really the days that mess with my head. It's more the few days beforehand where I'm panicking about certain things. I'll get very inside my head about my physical appearance. And then afterwards, even something that is very that you only notice if you're a referee. If I feel like I've done something wrong, I will absolutely just keep going over and over and over that in my head, which is a problem for me, unfortunately. It does take me a while to get over things. I don't get bitter about scenarios. Usually it's internal, and I'll blame myself for these sort of things. But yeah, basically it's kind of like the eye of the storm is the show. But the couple of days on either end of that, I'm not kind to myself. So that is definitely something that obviously I've got to work on. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. Fantastic. So, got another comment here from Wrestling Stats saying, Evening, gents. Hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying the show so far if you've watched from the start. Final question from this section, mate, and then we're going to go on to the mental health part of this video. Yep. We're nearly an hour in, which is absolutely brilliant, this, mate. I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's absolutely fantastic. I hope that everyone's enjoying it as well. Liam, Gavin, Lauren, Snaps, I hope that you're all enjoying it, guys, and anyone else that's watching. So, final question for this part, mate, is how has the wrestling industry changed since you started, and what impact have those changes had on your role?
I think the change is there's a lot of toxicity in the wrestling industry just prior to me starting. So I don't think it's necessarily changed since I've started. But you hear murmurings of how unhealthy and toxic some of the environments were in pro wrestling just a few years ago. And the culture seems to be improving. And I do see that. I do see that people are generally being nicer to each other backstage. It's very, very rare now that I personally see any sort of backstage blow ups. Usually, everyone is sort of all working to the same goal. There's not a lot of ribbing or hazing that I see backstage now, other than playful sort of fun stuff. And again, I think that's largely probably down to speaking out and things like that, which was just prior to me getting into it. But it certainly seems to be on an upswing. I think that whereas we're not necessarily seeing bigger crowds at the moment, I feel like that's coming because of Raw and SmackDown on Netflix and AEW coming over in the past few years. I think it's becoming more and more acceptable to be a wrestling fan, and that's going to have a knock-on effect, hopefully very, very soon. The big change that I'm sort of wary is a strong word, but the big change that I'm thinking about quite regularly right now is if WWE do this NXT Europe, how is that going to affect the indie scene? Will it affect the indie scene? Are we overthinking it? Possibly, because that's what I do. But yeah, that's sort of on my mind now, and it's going to be an interesting few years, I think, in the future. If I'm still doing this in a few years' time, I imagine the landscape, for better or worse, will be significantly different.
So just want to put this out there. If you do happen to get called up to NXT Europe, make sure that you give me a shout and make sure that you connect me with a couple of wrestlers, mate. I can always do more guests on the channel.
I think there's more chance of me dating Alexa Bliss than that happening. But we're very, very sweet of you. Thank you.
Honestly, mate, I've watched a lot of your matches and I've watched your work, and you absolutely blow some of these other refs out of water, mate. Honestly, I can't big you up enough. I've watched a lot of your matches, and every single time I watch it, I'm not watching the wrestlers, I'm watching you.
That's not a good thing. That's the exact opposite of what I should be doing. But no, thank you for that. That is sweet. We'll get into this when we enter the dark timeline in a few minutes. But yeah, I don't think there's a future for me as a referee long term. Again, I mentioned this. I'm 44 years old almost. Limited shelf life. I don't see any reason why a big company would choose someone like me over some of my peers who are much younger, and many of them have got a lot of strengths that sort of shadow mine. People like Reese Greenwood, James Greenwood, other people like that, Ref Katie Walker. I think those are the people that you would like to watch out for. There are others, and I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning names. Neil, another one. There are many referees that I hope do get a call up. I certainly don't think there would be anything like that, even remotely on the cards for myself. I'm not being down about it. I enjoy what I do. One of the biggest joys I've got in wrestling is actually working with younger or greener talent at some of the smaller shows, because I like to believe, whether I do or not, I like to believe that I help them to an extent, so they work with a competent referee to get them used to working on a bigger stage. Again, I mentioned LWF earlier. There's a lot of great talents at LWF that I hope do go for that sort of prestige booking like a WWE, TNA, people like Harley Hudson and Rob Drake and others that I really do feel like are on the cusp. I like to think that I've helped them in the extent that I've given them someone competent in the matches that I've done with them, so they can do their thing and elevate their game without having to worry about a referee that could potentially mess things up. Uh, I think that's probably my role moving forward. Is just someone that's on the peripheries, just sort of helping where I can.
So, so in a way, you could probably say that you are the indie Dusty Rhodes.
You could say that, maybe.
The American Dream, the road, baby.
American Dream. Oh, don't start, because PL Dotson will ring me and start giving me his Dusty Road impressions, and then we'll get into a loop and we won't stop for like 15 minutes.
Fantastic. So, on to the next part, guys, and this is where we're going to be talking about the mental health challenges, struggles, and then eventual triumphs of the. Another quick disclaimer, guys, this is going to get a bit deep, it's going to get a bit heavy with Steve's answers as well as my questions. If at any point it does get a bit too deep, we will step back, because end of the day, we don't want to be putting people under too much pressure or strain or anything like that. So hope you guys enjoy this next part. I'm really looking forward to this, and hopefully we can possibly reach someone out there that is struggling with the mental health and show them that they're not alone, because at the end of the day, we're not alone in this world, especially when it comes to mental health. So to kick off with this next part, Steve, the life of anyone in professional wrestling can be really intense. Have you ever felt that the pressures of the job have impacted your mental well-being?
Yeah, I mean, we've circled back to it a couple of times, really. One of the reasons that I'm not a wrestler is that I don't want to be in a position where I could physically hurt someone and ruin their chance of moving on to better things. There's an incredible amount of pressure to make sure that the match is looking the way it should and glowing the way it should. And I'm constantly thinking, industry term here, oh God, have I broken kayfabe about something? Have I ruined the experience for a little kid that's the first time they're watching wrestling? To be completely honest with you, which again is something I said to you sort of privately to give you an idea of some of the things I wanted to talk about. My biggest hang up in wrestling is my size. I am not a small person, and well, I'm an incredibly obese person. Let's just be honest. And the role of a referee is to be in the background until it's time to be seen. And I'm always terrified that, sort of what you said earlier, that I'm pulling focus. Because if a referee is pulling focus, they are killing the match. You need to step in and do your job when there are spots for you to do that in service of the match. But if you're pulling focus in between those bits, you shouldn't be in the business. And I'm constantly thinking that about myself. The fitness element, I was always very, very worried about. Although I overcame that to an extent. Under the stage lights, I'm sweaty and I'm horrible, and sometimes I sort of struggle to breathe in there, and it's often quite difficult to understand whether it's a soft sort of panic attack that you've built up to it the week before, and you sort of you've still got it in you, and or if it's something that you've overexerted yourself. So I'm constantly thinking, oh God, I hope no one's looking at me. I could ruin this at any moment. When I first started with a referee, As I'm sure you can imagine, there was a lot of comments online of, "Oh yeah, you know, he's all right. He just needs to lose weight." And uh, for the majority of my life, I've hated pictures of me. I've actually lost a lot of weight prior to this, but the visceral hatred that I'll get of seeing pictures of me does take me to a very dark place sometimes. And people might not expect that because I share a lot of pictures of me online. And healthy or not, I sort of disassociate with it sometimes. And I say, well, that's not me. That's referee Ste Grimshaw. There is a difference. And I'm doing that to sort of have some ownership of the pictures that I've got of myself, but also to obviously try and raise my profile to potential promoters in the future. But yeah, I'm sure I probably come across as being someone that's like always posting pictures of himself again. I hate looking at myself in the mirror. I panic about what I'm wearing on a regular basis. There are certain times where, and this is no fault of the photographers, there are certain times where a photographer will get a picture of me, and even though I'm not the focus of what's going on, they'll clip the sort of side of me, and you'll see up my leg, and then you'll see a massive pouch of belly fat that for me has ruined the experience. And I know I'm overthinking it, but it's very taxing on my mental health. Um, Going beyond that, again with my weight, I worry that if I step out of line, I could step on someone's arm, I could step on someone's foot or leg, and I could break their leg. I'm so heavy, and I'm there's not a lot of give. So I'm constantly aware of that, and the sort of hatred that I give to myself afterwards, as I sort of mentioned, um, it's stuff that you might not expect, and because I do talk a lot and I'm quite open about these things, it probably feels like, or it probably appears as though I'm totally cool with all this, but it's really taxing, and many times I'll just after a show, if something has gone wrong, and things do go wrong. Um, Even though if the same thing happened to one of my friends in the support group, um, even though I tell them, oh, it's fine, nobody noticed, I will sit close to tears. I'm a big Marvel fan, but I'm going to use the word the void because that's how I feel about my emotional state. Sometimes the void sort of takes over, and I disassociate, and I'll just space out for sort of 30 minutes to an hour before I do anything else. And I'll feel quite hollow inside, like I've ruined everything. And then I'll get a message a couple of days later saying, "Oh, good job, Steve. Oh, really good. That was fun," and all this lot. And obviously, I've treated things so much worse than anybody else would have treated them, but that is a constant battle of that I have post show and also pre show, thinking about what I'm going to wear, etc. The tightness of my t-shirt, the fact that I don't look like everybody else. So that is a constant thing that I've got on the day to day matches and day to day shows that sort of bleeds into the next few days sort of afterwards. So that's my sort of biggest hang up in the wrestling industry. And whenever you do see these comments like, "Oh, what's that doing in the ring?" And even supportive comments that you get sometimes, like, "Oh yeah, you look like you can leather the wrestlers, and why aren't you a wrestler?" So, well, I don't want to be a wrestler, and I have to actually work quite hard to look like a coward in front of these wrestlers sometimes, to sort of put the emphasis back on them. Sometimes promoters and wrestlers will think they're sort of throwing me a bone by giving me something to do in the match. In reality, it just shines a spotlight on me that I don't really want.
Yeah, sorry, I just got a bit choked up there because I relate quite a lot to what you're saying. Obviously, with the body image sort of thing, because I'm quite similar with not liking the way that I look myself. Not saying that it's anything compared to what you go through, mate, because you do go through quite a lot of hatred online, which for me it's just disgraceful sort of thing. Um, so, have you ever experienced moments of anxiety and depression related to working as a referee, sort of thing? And would you be able to share that if you are comfortable with sharing that experience, mate?
I mean, the depression thing, you get flashes of anxiety, I suppose, and flashes of disassociation afterwards. That's a sort of regular occurrence. There's been a couple of occasions where, because I do put a lot of myself into things, um, where it's stuck a little bit more. Like without going into too much detail, there was a show in the first 6 months of me reffing where one of the established wrestlers, and I'm not going to get into whose fault it was. I think there was probably fault on both sides, but the wrestler was very aggressive with me backstage, thinking that I'd ruined the match. Um, at the moment, I literally just got on with the job. I went out and did a rumble, like 30 seconds after he yelled at me, um, and fine. And in fact, Mike Angus was talking about this probably about a year ago now. Actually, he was saying to me, "Oh, you looked absolutely fine." And then after the show, I thought, "Oh no, this has bothered him," because after the show, I just went backstage, grabbed all my stuff and my two little whiteboards because I didn't have a big one then. And I just burst into tears, and I almost quit there and then. And again, these are things that probably could happen to anyone. And was it a big deal? Probably not. But I took it so hard that there was months of me being incredibly upset, and thinking, well, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not in a position. What was I thinking? Why was I trying to get into this at the age I am, at the weight I am? I'm a bumbling idiot. What am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this. This is a young man's game. I'm just playing make believe. Why should I be doing something like this? And it was months before I sort of got back on the horse mentally, even though I kept rinsing and repeating. I never stopped working. Um, it was months before my headspace was where it was. And that's probably happened to that degree another two times in my, again, reasonably short career. That there was a period of time where someone thought I was undercutting another referee, which is absolutely something I'll never do. And the person, I thought they would know, and that they would just understand and take my side. And that's probably on me because I understand the scenario. I've revisited the scenario. I can understand why they would think I was undercutting somebody else. Uh, but that ruined me for months, and I almost quit. And then another time, quite recently, had a bit of an argument with a promoter who I put a lot of emotion and time and energy into that promotion. And whilst there's been no sort of big blow up internally, it put me in a depressive spike for months and months and months. That I'm still probably not quite over. And it's not that it's sapping the enjoyment out of the wrestling experience on the day. Because on the day, I'm in the moment, I'm living for the crowd, I feel like I'm supporting, which is, again, the driving factor for me. But it's the days after. It's when you've come down, when you come home to a quiet house and you're thinking about things and you can't quite enjoy the things you used to because it's still playing on your head. So those are the three biggest sort of occasions in wrestling where I've had sort of an emotional burnout or spiraling depression because of things that I would consider, and I shouldn't phrase it in this way, but it's the only way I can think about phrasing it. Something that a normal person wouldn't deal with. They would just snap out of it and just get on with their day. And of course, there's no such thing as a normal person, and I know everybody's dealing with this, but sometimes reasonable Ste isn't driving the car, emotional Ste is driving the car, if that makes sense.
Completely agree, mate. I can completely sympathise with with everything you've just said there, buddy. So, obviously, you've spoke about the challenges that you've faced, obviously, while being a referee. What coping mechanisms or strategies have you developed to deal with the stress and mental demands of being a professional wrestling referee?
Well, the biggest thing is that I'm very lucky that I do have some great friends around me that I can talk to, both in my personal life and in the wrestling space. I mean, my personal life, I've got a shout out to Darren, John, and Chris who support me as my BFFs, if you would. And then in my wrestling sort of spectrum. I've got the referee support groups who are all going through variations of the same thing every time they go in the ring as well, and people like Lauren, who whilst she isn't in the referee space anymore, she's still there and she's still a part of those sort of support networks. Um, and the fact that I keep getting bookings is kind of a support as well, because at least people do want to deal with me, which is, I'm not a very egotistical person, but it's nice to feel wanted and do as many shows as I am doing. Um, I think a lot of the time I just need time, and I think over the years, because obviously this depression and everything hasn't just turned up with wrestling. I had a bout of depression with my shoot job last year, which I struggled with emotionally, but I kept that quite annexed from my wrestling side. Wrestling became more of an escapism, watching it and being involved with it at that point. So these feelings haven't just sort of turned up. It's something I've always dealt with. And I mentioned storytelling earlier. I find a real positive escapism from watching just films, and it's as simple as that. And there's no particular genre that I go to more than anything else. I just really, really, really enjoy sitting down, watching a good old fashioned story, 2 hours, knock it out. And that just calms me down. So I think for me, just a bit of separation, either watch a film or head for a long walk, put on a podcast about film or wrestling or something like that. Big podcast guy. Just time and separation are my sort of coping mechanisms with that. But unfortunately, it does take me a while to get over things, and um, I guarantee you, many of the people that I've had conversations with, that they've probably forgotten what we talked about. I've repeated that conversation in my head thousands of times since, and will not get over it. Don't get me wrong. If someone's done something bad to me, I'll forgive them. Um, but I'll still repeat that, even if I'm absolutely positive I was in the right on a particular scenario. There's always that little thing in the back of your head that goes, but you are a bit worthless though, Steve. You are, that sort of thing. So yeah, so that's it. Just time and films and happy places really. And I also quite like watching old 1980s, early 90s wrestling occasionally. Uh, though that does sort of feel like a bit of a busman's holiday at the moment.
So, just to make it a little bit light-hearted, I want to ask you what's your three favorite films. If you were to pick three films to watch right now, what would they be?
You can't do that to me because you have to think about genres and okay, give me a genre.
Adventure.
Good genre. One of the Indiana Jones films. I'm going to say probably The Last Crusade, because I just love the banter between the son and the dad. Um, so yeah, okay, Last Crusade. The first Mummy film, I thought the original Mummy with Brendan Fraser was absolutely fantastic. And then probably the Goonies, because there's a nostalgia thing there, great soundtrack. Yeah, so I think those are my three. I do like modern films as well, but those are just the three that have just popped into my head.
I think me and you are going to be very good friends, Steve. So, go back to the questions. Last couple of questions, bud. So, what advice would you give to other people in high pressure professions, not just professional wrestling, especially those in entertainment or sport who might be struggling with their mental health?
Support network, support network, support network. If you don't have one, you can get one just by talking to people and sharing your experiences. I know that I don't have these thoughts that I've got are purely mine. I know that other people have these thoughts as well. I feel like a lot of the times people, even that little voice in the back of the head, are very much of, oh, I'm alone. Nobody feels like this. Nobody wants to hear me whine and complain about things. I'm a burden. And it's not that I don't feel that way too, but again, emotional Steve is driving the train. Reasonable Steve. If when emotional Steve is driving, I just say to myself, right, emotional Steve is driving right now. Just wait, pace yourself out, come back to it, and think about it logically. And that might take some time. So do something to pass the time until you can think clearly, and speak to someone that is of like mind. If you don't have a support network at the moment, there's always one around the corner. You've got some great links there to people like the Samaritans and people that will listen. I'm very, very lucky that I can pick up the phone if I really, really wanted to, and speak to a large number of friends. I appreciate not everybody has that, but that doesn't mean that that people don't want to listen. I, for one, have listened to people that I loose acquaintances with. I've sat with them. I've talked to them, and I'm happy to do that because we're all in this together. I don't like the phrase "we're all in the same boat" because we're not. We're all in the same ocean. We've all got very, very different boats. Sometimes don't worry about that guy. That guy's fine, but support the people that are floating around. Um, yeah, that's probably rambling, but I think you get the genuine sort of consensus of that is just be an ear to somebody else as you would want to have someone be an ear for you.
Good thing, mate. I can't put it better myself, to be honest. So, moving forward, mate, what steps are you taking personally to prioritize your own mental health while continuing your career in professional wrestling?
I'm lucky that the more shows that I do, and I know some people don't believe me when I say this, but the more shows that I do, the sort of happier I am in my headspace because it is a bit of an outlet for me on the actual show days. It's the days in between that are problematic for me, so I like to be around wrestling as much as I can really, and in turn that helps with my physical fitness. I'm making a definite step in the right direction for re-upping my physical activity because there was a period last year because of issues I had in work where I sort of did let the fitness side go a bit awry. I've lit the gym the last few weeks and I'm already seeing the differences. So yeah, that's the main sort of thing for me. I'm very, very lucky that that I've got a job now that I really, really enjoy, and that's helping me. So yeah, I'll just keep rinsing and repeating at the moment because I am going in the right direction. And then if things do get bad again, obviously I will seek help from professionals. But fingers crossed, everything is sort of on the upswing for me at the moment, which is positive. So yeah.
Really happy to hear that. So, final question, mate, and this is going to close out this episode. Just want to say a quick thank you to Steve for joining me today. Really appreciate the honesty, mate, and obviously opening up about your past in wrestling, obviously coming into wrestling, becoming a referee, but then also really appreciate your openness with your mental health and everything that goes with that. Closing question, mate, is what message would you like to leave the viewers about the importance of mental health, both within professional wrestling and in everyday life?
Think about when you're on a plane, saying that sort other people out before you sort yourself out. I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm very much of the you can't pour from an empty cup sort of mentality. So if you are struggling, don't try and do too much. Try and work on yourself. It's okay to have time for yourself. It's not a negative thing to just tell people, look, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit burned out. I'll get back to you. And again, just be aware that your voice is valid, and there are people going through things that I'm sure would love to help you if they know that you're hurting, because inherently I do believe people are good on the inside. Oftentimes people are so overwhelmed with the day-to-day stuff that they are dealing with, they may not see your pain. So let them know if you need something, and again, build that support network. People care. Strangers will care on the Samaritans thing if you don't have a close personal relationship with people. But yeah, don't suffer in silence. It's the worst thing you can do. Yeah, I guess I'm just rambling now, but yeah, I think my points have been taken across really.
It's a fantastic point to make, mate. So, gonna end it there, guys. Once again, I want to say a massive thank you to Ste Grimshaw for coming on the channel today. I've really enjoyed this episode. I hope that you guys have too. If you had, make sure to smash that like button and let us know why. Make sure that you go over and give Steve some love on his Instagram and all his other socials. I'll put a link down to his Instagram in the description below. Obviously, like we said earlier, if you are suffering with mental health, I'll put a lot of links down in the description as well. But yeah, that's all for today, guys. Steve, I'm going to let you close us out with one last comment, mate, and then we'll end the stream.
Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
See you later, guys. Thank you, Steve. Take care.